Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me again, Jen Thornton. And let me tell you a little bit about Jen. Jen helps organizations create an environment of innovation and adaptability by developing leaders with exceptional mental resilience and creativity. She is an executive leadership coach who helps progressive leaders up their mental game to calmly make high-stake decisions, inspire excellence in people who are playing to win, happy, fulfilled, and doing the work they are proud of with their teams they love. So over the decade ago, Jennifer had really led international teams across the globe, helping world-class leaders expand their new markets. And she also exceeded expectations for business goals and financial returns as she was getting into trouble for pushing back against the status quo. Today, I thought we talk about building a bench for your organization. It's a topic that a lot of companies don't think about and are faced with a lot of troubles because of that. So I thought it's a great topic, no matter what size your organization, but especially if you are small to mid-size or large, it's really important. So please join me in welcoming Jen Thornton. Jen, you and I had spoke a little while ago, and we touched on this topic and also keeping your teams motivated. So I thought it'd be a good thing for us to spend some time talking about building a bench and the importance of that for your organization, that succession planning effort that everybody puts off to someday and then someday never comes.
It is so true. It's always one of those things we're going to get to. It's always one of those things that, we think we've done it or we've kind of done it. And then when we need it, it's like, full body panic.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, I guess we'll get into a lot of this, but when you talk about the full body panic, it's also the frustration and anxiety and all those other things that you don't need to be interrupting your business flow and success. You want to concentrate on sales and new clients and delighting your clients and making sure that the people that you have are not frustrated. And so all those things come when you have a solid team.
Yeah, it does. And, it just makes everyone a little bit more bold. When you have a solid team and everyone understands their role and there's, a lack of fear and, you just have a really good team, which building a bench creates that over time. It really is amazing how much more fun it is to get up every day and do your job and get up every day and make a difference in a way that feels good to you. So building the bench obviously is important for ensuring that we have people coming into roles, being able to be promoted into roles. But it really has a larger impact than I think most people give it credit for.
So let's take a step back a little bit and just think about, what was it in your life, in your experiences that said, this is something we need to talk about. You probably, like me, have had those times where you thought, oh, thank God I have this, or, oh if we only would have done this work beforehand. So what's your experience been?
I think it's kind of hit me in multiple ways over the decades of my career, depending on where I was. And I was very fortunate early in my career that I had leaders who were very, very focused on succession planning. I mean, it was part of our conversations every week. And at the time, young in my career, I was like, oh, I'm so tired of talking about this. Like, why do we have to keep talking about this? But then when something would happen, someone would get promoted and we would need to fill that position, or, someone was going to go do a temporary assignment, open this department up over here or there, then all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I get it. I didn't have to lose any sleep. And I remember doing that work every month. We had to turn in our succession plan and we had to do things. So at a very early part of my career, I developed just the practice of making it part of my everyday mind kind of thought. And I really value the fact that my early leaders instilled that in me because it grew with me. But I think that as I grew in my career and had, more higher level positions, higher stake positions, those types of things, I think what I also realized is how impactful it is, not only to me, because, early in my career, it was about me, let's get honest. And then later in my career, I realized, no, it's really about this greater good of the whole company, things that we learn as we mature. And what I really realized is it wasn't just about, if my team was 100% and doing really well, it also allowed the teams we interacted with, all of our cross-functional partners, to do really well. And I think anyone listening to this who's had a strong team, but yet their cross-functional partner did not, how frustrating that is and how much burden that puts on your own team. So, it was through, many different ways throughout my career where I really was like, all right, this is important, and it evolves. And, I think we're all trying to figure out what that looks like in today's world.
That is so true. For my background, I saw it in different areas. We talk about cross-functional teams. I was a project manager and I saw that all the time, but it was also impactful with my brother-in-law has his own business and his sons were part of that business. And then he knew he was going to retire someday, but he didn't want this business that his father-in-law left to him to run to go under because there was no one to take over. And so you also want to know that you equip those people that are going to take over your business to have what they need, that they have the skills, they have the understanding, the knowledge. And then the other aspect is I did and do tons of volunteer work. And for example, in my Toastmasters organization in the district, which is in half of Georgia for me here, we have to have every year a new set of people take over, 7 people take over running this district. And you need to have people mentored and groomed, if you will. And that means you need to tap people on their shoulders 5 years before to make them prepared to take on 5 years later. And I think oftentimes we don't think about that. And sadly, you do see nonprofits go under because they didn't think about this bench succession planning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, last night I'm part of a women's executive organization, and we had an event last night. And in May, we vote on our new incoming board, and we were kind of going through a couple of those things. And I took over as president elect 3 years ago because you have an elect, and then you have a president, and then you have a few past, and you succession plan. But it's a really incredible organization that's been around for almost 50 years. And we had a board. When I joined the board had been the same board for a really long time. And so we didn't have a succession plan. Everyone was tired and burned out or had already done every single position on the board. And I was like, okay, you guys are friggin' awesome, amazing, but no, off, all new people. And so now we've got some levers in place to keep the freshness coming through in succession planning. But you're absolutely right. It's corporate, it's large companies, it's small companies, it's family managed companies. I have several family owned clients, and we talk about this all the time. And it's volunteers, it's nonprofit, it's organizations, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So whenever we talk about building a bench, maybe people are still not understanding what is it that building a bench is actually in terms of a company organization.
Yeah. So when you build a bench, what that means is that you have looked at your key positions, if not all positions, but start with your key positions if you're going to start somewhere. And you really think about, if this person that's in the role isn't there tomorrow, whether it's promotion, retirement, something else, like we don't know why. There's a lot of reasons why. They win the lottery, those types of things. Who would take over that position, and what does that person need? And so when you build a bench, you're really looking at making sure that you're networking external, that if someone was to leave tomorrow, who you want to call for that position, and you stay in touch with those people. It's also looking at your current staff and really thinking about who could take this role and what do they need to learn today so they're ready 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And I know today we're talking kind of about that traditional bench of people to come into your existing roles. I always love to kind of elevate that and think about it a little one step higher. And if we think about it one step higher, especially with really fast growing organizations, what happens in fast growing organizations is really a lot in startups and those types of things too, is the business starts to take, the business is allowed to kind of create and start to take off because the people leading the business and running the business, their skill set is higher than the need to actually run the business. And that's how you get it off the ground, because I am smart enough that I can over manage what I have and I can get it off the ground. And then you're like, wow, it's off the ground, and you get going and you get going. And what happens is almost all the time, organizations put all of their effort into whatever that widget is, the customer, the analytics, the stuff. But they don't stop, and they keep building it, but they don't stop and say, as this company grows, what is my team going to need to stay ahead of the business? And what happens so often is our business gets bigger and harder to manage than the skill set of our team. And I call that the talent cliff, right? So the business gets going, your team starts falling apart, the wheels start getting a little wobbly, some of your best people leave because it's getting stressful. All these things start to happen. And, then your talent kind of goes off the cliff because they're no longer stronger than what it takes to run the business. And then after that, of course, your business will go with it. And so, you have to think of building a bench in two ways in today's world. It's staying ahead of your business, but it's also thinking of that traditional way of a bench of who are you going to call up, right? That's the metaphor of why it's called the bench. Who's on the bench, and you need a player who's going to be called up.
Yeah. I'm a big football fan, and so that's what made it so easy for me. It's like, well, my gosh, if my team doesn't have a backup quarterback on the bench or any of those, so that one, the next week they have to play the next Sunday or Thursday or whatever, and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? The team is going to fall apart. And it's the same thing with your team. As you said, we don't know. When I started working for my last company, they did special assignments all the time, and you might be gone for 3 months, or you might be gone for a whole year. And so now your department has to fill that slot until you come back. And also make sure that there's not a drop in skill set or understanding of what's going on. And it just brings to light how important it is to continually cross-train and inform and create job breakdowns of what they have to do and how they do it, which a lot of people don't do anymore.
No.
The person leaves the job, and if they gave 2-week notice and they can be there when the new person is there to train them, that's great. But a lot of times that's not the case. So you, the manager or the supervisor, has to do that, fit that in your already busy day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it puts pressure on everyone. And then it kind of starts that spiral of more people leaving because they're doing the job of 3 people.
Yeah. And that is very true, that frustration piece. And I that falls into what I was next going to ask, or what are some important key elements that make it just crucial that you build a bench?
Yeah, I mean, I think you build a bench for a lot of reasons. One is, it's your responsibility as a leader, to have people to go into jobs. It's the responsibility to your team, to yourself, to your balance of life. If you're having a lot of turnover and you're working a ton of hours, and too often what happens is people say, well, I'm too busy to hire that person that would make my life less busy. And I'm like, well, it's only going to get busier. I hate to tell you, you're going to have to figure this out. And so I think it's really, making sure that we're building it for ourselves, for our teams, for the company, for your customer, whoever your customer is. If you don't have a strong bench to go in, it will impact them. And so, I think there's just countless reasons why it's important to do it.
So let's talk about an area that maybe the audience isn't thinking about. They're just thinking everything's great with my company, but there's a lot of companies right now, large and small, that because of the pandemic and they're trying to rebuild their businesses, they have downsized. They are laying off people. They are re-engineering, whatever the fancy word you want to use, but you had a staff of 100 and now you got 70 or 80 or 50.
Yeah.
And you have to still do everything that you were doing with that staff of 100. How important is it that you make sure that the bench that you have can support still when those things are going on? Because I've seen so many times where they thinned out the bench a little bit, or the organization a little bit too thin, and there was no one sitting on a bench.
Yeah, that does happen. And what I would say is, if you've had to lay off, in that scenario, 30% of your workflow, you have to get honest and reduce your work by 30%. And that's what companies don't take the time to do. Because if you don't, then the people you have are going to be burned out. And there is always what I call vanity work going on. And that is work that doesn't make an impact to anything, but there's someone that's important that thinks it's important and it has no impact. And there's no organization out there that doesn't have something on that list that they could let go. Or starting to say, hey, this is, we wish we were all A+ students every day, but we're not meant to be A+ students all day, every day. This work needs to be at an A level, this work needs to be at a B level, and this work needs to be at a C level so that we can get all the work done. And so, I think when we think about reductions of staff, we have to think about reduction of work. And then also, is there A work that now becomes B work, and B work that now becomes C work? And is there C work that, just didn't really have that much of an impact? So it goes away. And so I think that's one of the biggest ways to make sure you have a strong, capable team. If you have a thin bench for financial reasons, then you have to make sure that you're really focused in on leading those people really well, or they will leave. And it will be really hard to find people who are willing to do jobs and a half.
So one last question before we get into my contact slide. For those that are just listening, you should have been taking notes, so go grab a pen real quick. But the last question I have is, we talked about things, the reasons why we do this, but how often do we get it wrong and forget that we need to not only have a plan, but understand the plan? So as I mentioned earlier in that legacy idea, that whenever you leave, making sure that the people below you that are taking over the helm understand the importance of this, that it doesn't go off to the wayside.
Yeah. So that's a lot of the work that I actually do with organizations. It's talent strategy. And, as a leader, if you aren't able to do the talent strategy, you need to bring someone in that can help you with that talent strategy. I think an external person is able to see things with a different lens. And that makes such a difference, because you can go in and say, here's our purpose of our business. Here's where we're going. Here's the areas that we're growing. Here are the areas we're not growing. And an outside person can look at that and be like, okay, well, I see this, I see that, doing culture surveys, understanding what's going on in the organization's interviews, not like the surveys you do anonymously that's set somewhere, having someone come in and really talk to your employees about what's going well, what's not going well. All of those things really make a difference if you're trying to build a strong, capable team with some bench on that team, whether that bench is on the team or sitting on the sidelines that you want to go and try to get later. But you really have to put the work in, and it's not a cookie cutter plan. It is not something, no plan works for two different organizations. Now there's some core components of it. But in today's busy world, what most of us are missing is really the time to slow down and be thoughtful, be strategic, be thinking about what's next, and then saying, are we prepared for what's next? And then if, putting the work in to make sure that we are not only prepared, but possibly over prepared. Because if you're over prepared with a team and your team is stronger than what it is needed for the business, you can pull that business up. Instead of pushing it, you're pulling it, and you're taking it to new heights that no one else ever thought was possible. But when your team is struggling, it's going to be feeling like pushing a boulder up the hill to get those sales in. But a strong team, it's amazing what they can do and how they can really drive your overall results as an organization.
So very true. So if you're out there and you're thinking, oh gosh, I need to know more, I'm going to share with you the contact information of Jen, who may be that person that you need to help you with your talent. So you that are just listening, the website is, again, www.304coaching.com. Again, that's 304coaching.com is the website. You can find her on LinkedIn, and that is Jennifer R. Thornton. That's Jennifer R. Thornton. And I will let Jen talk to you just a little bit more about the things that you might want to ask her whenever you're calling about just building a bench, how she might help you.
Yeah. So, love to talk to anyone who's interested in building a bench. I think, when I get on a phone call with either an owner or a leader, the first thing I say to them is, in the next 5 years, what would have to happen for you to say, wow, that was successful? And that's where we start. We start in a future mindset and we work our way back. So you can do that on your own, or I'm happy to jump on a call and help you with that process. You can also follow me on my own podcast at letsfixleadership.com. And again, just as Vicki said, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can also check out our website at 304 Coaching, and there are several tools there that you can download and help you with your process.
Fantastic. Well, Jen, as always, it's so great to talk to you. You have just a wealth of knowledge and the practical insights, if you will, that are necessary for businesses today, especially with the changing and the need to pivot constantly. I think there are insights that you share that really will help businesses stay strong and sustained and thrive and hopefully grow.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.